Welcome to the Roboticist Chronicles, an ARC Specialties podcast, where we get into the nuts and bolts of robots, automation, and the implications of an evolving machine workforce.
Hello, I'm Dan Alford, and you're listening to the Roboticist Chronicles podcast. As you know, we do nothing but robotics, but to do robotics, we need robotic people. And so we have a farm league. It's called High School Robotics. And so my guests today are from US First Robotics, which is the farm league. We look for US First Robotics on our engineers' resumes. So after they build robots in high school, they go on to college, get an engineering degree, and I look for that. It's a great program. I'm a huge fan of it. I personally started 6 teams, and today we have the pleasure of having 2 representatives from US First, Lucia and Juan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lucia, I think we've got a fun history, so let's start out how we met. So once upon a time.
27 years ago, going to be.
Is it? Now I'm old. I get a phone call from an instructor at Yates High, and here in Houston, they said that I was the only guy in the phone book under robotics, and they were starting a team, and they needed some help.
Wow.
And they asked me if I would come help. And I said, certainly. When do we start? And they said, 20 minutes. And so I drove over there, but we all hit it off, and we built a robot. And since then, like I said, started 6 teams. So, and then when exactly did you and I meet? Was it at the competition?
It was, what happened was a little bit about my story. I actually have a financial background because I used to work for Payne Weber and in the investment department, and I assisted our brokers. And my children got into robotics, and they said, Mom, we need somebody to carpool the kids. So that was back in...
That's how it starts.
Yes, yes. And that was back in 1997. So they wanted to go ahead and do the first robotics competition. And Mr. Wesley, who was principal at Booker T. Washington, went ahead and said, oh, can you help us? And he was going to have an airline hangar where we were going to build and all of this. And that was all great, but you needed money. And anyway, I helped fundraise to get money for the team and everything. And then I just was driving kids and was an observer. And then I dropped the kids off at Kellogg Brown and Root, where we would build our robot. And they went ahead and said, Mom, things aren't going so well. And it was actually, it was interesting because there were 16 and 17-year-olds that were bossing around engineers from our corporate sponsors. And I'm going, and I'm a very social person, you know, and I actually just went and observed and was quiet.
I can't believe this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. People can't believe that. And so anyway, what happened was went and observed, and then the next day we went ahead and I put on my robot mom lecture hat and told the kids, like, these people are just like you, Dan. You
volunteering their time.
Volunteering their time. You have a family at home. You have a business to run and everything.
Treat them nicely.
Yes, and these people are coming from their homes. They could be spending that time with their own family and their gas and everything else, but they're here to support you. And the kids are showing up at Brown and Root whenever they want. Oh, we stopped to get a hamburger and all of this. So that was the day that it was a reckoning time or whatever, you know. And so anyway, we got started on a positive path that day, and that was really great. And what happened was Houston had 12 regional events around the country at that time. The first event that they ever had here in Houston was in 1998, and we got to go to Space Center Houston, which that was interesting. Yeah. To their Space Center Houston, where they have
the tours,
and everything. And what happened was Daddy Bush was giving a speech that day, and so we had the lobby that we were in, and they had to break down the lobby and then set it for us to have our competition there, and then they had to set it back up for President Bush and everything, you know, the next day. And I remember it was so interesting because the pit area where teams work was in the food court. and all of the tables were pushed together. And to get out of there and go to the competition field, you had to carry the robot over your head. 120-pound robot over your head. Anyway, we did that, and Booker T went to the state championship and everything.
And now they're a powerhouse team. They're well renowned. What's the team nickname?
The Leopards.
The Leopards.
We were the Tigers at that time because ExxonMobil was a partner of ours. But what I was going to say is, we need to have one here in Houston. And there was this whole thing about where there were a lot of people that were up and down Space Center Houston Boulevard or whatever, that they were all going to partner with First Headquarters and everything, and it was a lot of goodwill.
Everybody talks and a few people act.
Exactly, no action. And I'm going, we aren't going through that again, because what happened was we needed an event to go to the next year, and what happened was the only one that we could go to was Florida, so...
Too far.
Yeah, so myself and one of our mentors, I'm going, you know what, if we want an event, we have to make it happen ourselves.
And it's been going on ever since.
Right. And what happened was we went and made it happen, and it was the Lone Star Regional, and it was lucky number 13.
And that was back in the Astrodome back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and so to fast forward here, how did I meet you? We had our first event at what's now NRG Arena,
Yeah, rodeo
and so what you need for these events is you need a machine shop. Well, that was interesting because
the kids break their robots.
Yes.
And you need somebody to weld it, grind it, machine it, fix it.
Absolutely. So it was a put together machine shop because the rodeo stepped up and they had certain, machines and everything. They had a CNC machine
But no welding equipment.
Exactly. And so
But
anyway, yeah. So I'm going and looking, and I'm going, here's a person.
Here's a volunteer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the social, financial aspect of it. But there's a lot of folks that are listening to this probably are unaware of high school robotics. So I'm going to switch over. So Juan's kind of like your protege now, right?
Right.
Juan Salinas. Explain to the audience what the whole process, what is this process of building a robot, the fact it's different every year, that kind of stuff.
In January, usually, they launch a competition.
That's called a kickoff, right?
A kickoff, right. And they reveal the game.
Which is always different, so the kids can never refine the robot year to year.
Right.
I love that aspect.
They can't reuse the robot.
Yeah,
so
that's against the rules.
Right. So it's usually a 3-on-3 competition, on a... How long is it?
24 by 48.
24 by 48.
But the 3-on-3 constantly changes, right? Because
Right.
you're rotating. So I'll team with the two of y'all this round, but then you guys might be on an opposing team the next round.
Right. And back when I was doing it, you had 6 weeks to build a robot. Now, there's no time limit, right?
2 years ago, they don't have that 6-week limit.
Oh, I don't know if I approve.
But and one of the reasons they did that is because
People were cheating.
Teams were actually building.
2 robots.
They did that, but they also came with incomplete robots, and I'm over here, got to get that robot inspected and everything, because that's one of the things. So they were building the robots.
Oh, my teams have helped other teams build robots.
At the competition.
Yeah, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So describe this robot. Is it electric, gasoline, nuclear?
It's mostly electric. Let's say it's 5 foot tall, and basically it's got a battery in it like you would have in a car, but it's smaller, and that's what powers the robot. You build a base, and supposedly to build the base of the robot is supposed to be easy, but it's not as easy as it looks,
Well, they have a kit of parts that you can use. My kids never did. They always built it themselves.
Right.
And guess what? That doesn't come with an instruction manual on what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and the robot can only weigh 120 pounds, but the box of parts that is provided weighs 160. Obviously, something's not going to work here.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's, basically you build the base, and then you build, let's say, depending on what the game is, you build an arm or a shooter or something to play the game.
You might pick something up and move it. You might throw a ball. You might... What are the other tasks? I've lost track.
Yeah.
Frisbees.
Last year it was balls, right?
Yes.
It was like small volleyballs, kind of. They were a little smaller than volleyballs, right?
Right.
Yeah. So they would shoot those into some goals, kind of like basketball. So it was.
How sophisticated are these machines? Are they autonomous? You know, my definition of a robot is it must be programmable, multi-axis, and autonomous.
The first 20 seconds, you get a chance to do an autonomous mode.
And
Is it the 20
you can't
seconds?
drive it during that period.
Right, you
It
can't
has
drive it.
to be autonomous.
Right. And some people don't do it. Like, you know, I had a middle school. We did a middle school robotics team for FIRST.
Yep.
So we had autonomous, but we always had autonomous because we'd go to the tournament, and then one of the programmers there would help us, you know, have some
Otherwise,
kind of
you sat
autonomous
there
mode.
with a lifeless robot for
Right.
20 seconds.
Right, for 20 seconds. So the first 20 seconds, and then you after that, there's a bell that goes off, and then the drivers drive the robot. So, yeah.
So,
Anyway.
you know, the reason I like the program is because when I was a kid growing up, I built stuff. You know,
Right.
back then I was just considered to be a strange kid, you know, because I built stuff. Now this gives kids like me an outlet for
Yeah.
these energies. So, and I love it because the kids have to learn material science, they have to learn software, they have to learn wiring, they have to learn fabrication skills. You know, all my kids, I force them to learn how to weld too, because, you know, that's what we do.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I love the program. But I think best of all, what they learn is how to finish a project on schedule. Because if they don't, they stare at a lifeless robot while the other robots
Yeah,
play.
exactly.
Well, in some of the things, when they get to the tournament, the first thing that they have to do, they set up their workspace, which we call their pit, the team pit, and they have to learn to live in a 10 by 10. You would not believe some of the things that go in there. I have an interesting story to tell about a local team here. They had a 10 by 10 and couldn't get everything. Well, they went ahead and did a second story on it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That's getting a little
a
loud.
second story to their pit, and that's why now, when in the rule book, it's like you can't only have your pit 10 feet high.
Oh, wow.
Because of that. But anyway, they work on it there, and in the team that I worked with, Booker T. Washington, and also the team that Juan had, I was telling Dan a story earlier about Hogg Middle School. What happened was they came to the event, and they had this robot, and wouldn't be what I would do. The kids wanted these large pneumatic tires, so Mr. Salinas went and
That's right.
Mr.
the tire.
Salinas is what the kids said. He said that we could have those, and then they were trying to get them to work, but the problem with that was they were overweight. They were like
Right.
145 pounds, and they want us to go to the machine shop and have
Drill 20 pounds of holes.
yeah,
that's
drill
not gonna
out, 20 pounds of aluminum out, and it wasn't going to happen. And that's one of the things that I like about FIRST is the kids learn so much. It's like real life, and you go through a roller coaster of emotions because those kids were boo-hoo-hoo, you know, my part is going off in that. And I said, look, this is a life lesson. You're learning from it. Do you want to sit here and speed hole forever knowing that it's not going to happen, because we as adults can see that down the line? Or do you want to go and compete? Well, we want to compete.
Change the tires.
Yeah, change
Yeah.
the tires, do this. And so, and what was so neat, they went from boo-hoo-hoo to they changed the tires. Miss, I get to drive, and they faces light up, and that's so neat. And then back to what you were saying earlier, Dan, about you built things when you were kids. You were a kid, and people looked at you, God, you're weird, or whatever. That's one of the things that we hear from a lot of people. I wish they had this around when I was a kid, you know.
Right, because there's no outlet for me, you know, so I
Right.
just built stuff, and, you know, it was an end in itself. But now you get to go to this competition, you get to win trophies, you get to travel on the bus, maybe on an airplane. You know,
Yeah.
And then talk about the educational opportunities once these kids get out, all the
Wow.
scholarships. What's the number nowadays?
I want to say, isn't it 80 million?
80
Yeah.
million in scholarships
Yeah.
available.
80
Yeah.
million in scholarships.
And what I thought was interesting.
That's through FIRST, right?
Yes, because what FIRST does, it's their slogan nowadays. It's more than a robot, you know, the
Oh, indeed.
experience, and it was interesting because like the Booker T. Washington team, Juan worked with Hogg Middle School.
So did I.
Yeah.
That's how we're connected.
And he was a teacher there. And Hogg Middle School was in the feeder pattern of Booker T. Washington, so we got a lot of their kids on the team. And I remember one young man, he was
David?
going, I'm the captain of the team over here at
that's
Hogg.
David.
David.
I don't know if I
And
should say his last name. But
yeah, David. And I went over to Hogg, and there were some kids that were coming in. I'm the captain of the team and all of this, and I'm going to be the captain at Booker T. Washington. And I'm going, I think there's going to be other people there that will tell you differently. You are a new student coming in, and we're happy to have you on our team, but
You've been brought up to the big leagues now.
exactly, that you go ahead and do that. And what was so neat about him is he was going to do everything and all of this, and then you go ahead and he was that way at 8th grade in May at Hogg Middle School. And then when he's a senior and he's over here, and you see that growth in him.
Yeah.
It's just
It's called
fantastic.
education.
Yeah. And the kids go on and oh, I'm Lucia, and I'm a freshman on the team, and I want to travel. Well, to
Baby,
travel,
you got to earn it.
yeah, exactly. You have to. We aren't enablers, and we don't. Our team wasn't run that way, and we did not give that to them. It's like you're new on the team, you're making a contribution in that. If you went to a local Houston event, everybody from the team got to go. You know, if they met their attendance and they were a participant and everything. But when we traveled, you know, like going to Florida or to another regional, you know, it cost a lot of money,
Right.
and we only had so much money, and our students didn't have to pay like if you're on the football team or cheerleading squad, a fee or whatever.
Right.
We were fortunate enough to have some great sponsors that went ahead, and the kids didn't have to pay for anything. We bought their T-shirts, and what we asked them to do was, when we were working at the shop, can mom or dad or whoever bring a meal, pizza? We had it was interesting because some of our mentors, when they would come to Booker T. Washington, I want to mentor or whatever, I said, there's a health hazard. And they said, what is that? And I said, the food is so good, the Mexican food, the tamales and everything else that you have, you will gain weight.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that was cute. But anyway, to see, we had a travel team, and the kids earned their way. So they learned a lot of life
Kinda like the
lessons.
real world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was what we wanted to instill in them. And then they went on to college. And what's interesting about that is I'll be in the local grocery store shopping or whatever. I was, in one place I was buying some clothes and that in a local department store near my house. And they're going, hi, Lucia. And I'm going,
Yeah, there's thousands of kids that know you.
I'm running this back in my memory. Well, it was
Which year, which school?
yeah,
Which team?
yeah, exactly. And they were either from the Booker T team or another local Houston
Because
team.
you're the hub director. What's your title?
What I did is my career. I worked with the Booker T. Washington team, and like I said, I just wanted to drive the carpool. And then we didn't have a place to compete, and to make that happen. And I was a volunteer regional director.
Regional director.
Yeah, and now we've gone to districts. So I'm with the state organization still as a volunteer, first in Texas and everything. So
It went
it's
from
been-
one tournament in Houston to how many?
Yeah, we'll talk about that
Oh, okay.
later, the tournaments that we'll have.
Okay.
And so
Yeah,
back
because
in
now it's-
2003, I started the Hog School team.
wow.
You know,
2003?
and that was the first time I'd ever worked with a middle school. I'll tell you, I think that was challenging to work with the little kids. But we built a robot, and we all had fun. We learned something, and then you
Yeah.
came on board.
I came
When?
on board in 2005. And, yeah, and so the goal when I came on board was keep doing what you're doing, but grow the program.
Yeah.
So, you know, it group out. The way to grow the program is to get sponsors, really, to help fund the team
We'll get volunteers.
and volunteers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
All you listening out there, that's going to be the point of this exercise. You know, we're
Oh
gonna-
yeah.
Yeah.
Get the
there'll be a
volunteers.
pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we grew the program. I think it was like when I took over, it was about 8 kids, and then
That's all you need.
eventually we had like 60
That's
on
too
the
many.
team. Yeah. I mean, most of them were cheering, you know, for the team.
fine, too.
Yeah. So we'd go to the tournament. Lucia's like, why you bring all 60 kids? I said they want to come. So yeah, we would do that. So yeah, Hog was a really good way to prepare the kids to go to Booker T. So a lot of times when we were building the robot, like you said, it's kind of hard for the 5-foot robots with the little kids.
Little 5-foot kids.
Yeah. So I said, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But
that's the good part. I encourage them to do that. I think that's one of the big things on all my teams is. Particularly high schoolers, they're afraid of being uncool.
Right.
And to make a mistake is to be uncool.
Right.
And so I kind of beat it out of them. I said,
exactly.
Fail fast, fail often. And so we got them to a point where they would throw something together.
Right.
It might have been, just a mock-up or something. And if it worked, great. And if it didn't, we learned something anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what I would do, I'd set up 5 teams within the team. I'd have the base team, I'd have the arm team, the controls team, etc.,
Right.
and kind of all play them against each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, the arm's moving right along, but base needs to hurry up.
Yeah. Yeah. You got it. That's what you do at the middle school. And they make all the mistakes and told them this is so you can be a really good team when you get to Booker T. So, it was a lot of fun, but
It's interesting because some of the things that have advanced in FIRST is I remember I'll be doing this in 2023, 27 years, and some of the kids that was on the very first team, or even even back in 2005 when we got some of Juan's kids over at Booker T. Washington. Well, the girls are only allowed to do the secretarial work.
What?
That's the only reason that's the only reason that they're allowed on the team and everything.
Well, time out. I started an all-girls team at Duchenne, and they did quite well.
Oh, exactly. But you get these boys, and we're so big in that. And I remember there was one young man, that was on the team, and he was in a mariachi band, and he would come, and he was in his mariachi suit, and when we would do some community outreach stuff, which was great. And he said, anyway, the girls were regulated to do the paperwork, and it's like, okay, I can see down the road. Well, they got to the competition, and they had their robot, and they wanted to go practice, and they wanted to play. And some of that paperwork that they did not want to do, you have robot inspection, but in order to pass robot inspection, you have to have a cost list of all your parts.
Right. Did you cheat?
Yeah, and they didn't have that. Well, Miss, where's our inventory list? I don't know. We told y'all to do that. You didn't. Of course, I had it, and everything. And I said, well, what you're going to have to do is now you're going to have to get a yellow pad out and make a list of parts. And I let them start the exercise. And then I had my thumb drive, and I said, oh, is this what y'all were looking for? So it's about teaching lessons, too, in that. But, the girls, it's good that the girls on the team were involved, and then those are some of the life lessons that you teach as you go, and like, oh, this young lady really knows what we were doing. There's one young lady, she's a teacher now. She teaches in Houston ISD.
I think she teaches at a charter school probably.
Yeah. But she became a teacher, and it's like, why are you going to let her be a driver? And she's a very humble young lady.
Yeah, I
and
remember that.
Because she's the best.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a very humble young lady and everything. And she knew every tool that you needed to build. Boys didn't know it. And you know why? Because she cleaned up the tools after the boys at Hog.
Well, and like particularly on my all-girls team at Duchenne, obviously the girls are everything. And I told them once we're at competition, my hands are going to remain in my pockets unless there's something they couldn't handle. And I remember they went to the finals. I don't know if you recall this incident, so that means out of 60 robots, they're in the top 6 going to the very finals. And during the finals, you get pot batteries. You get replacement batteries. You don't have to use your batteries, right? So the girls went out on the field to change the battery. The other team, the parents went out. And then they took my girls' battery, and they were going to install it for them.
Oh, wow.
Until they figured out that they didn't understand how Zeus fasteners work.
Oh, wow.
So the girls took the battery back, demonstrated how Zeus fasteners, which are used on race cars, work, install their own battery. So,
oh, wow.
yeah. No, it doesn't have to be that way, Lucia.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
In that case, they taught the adults.
Yes, and that's one of the things where it was from. That's one of the things that I heard from a lot of kids. Like, oh, it's the adults doing everything. And when Dean Kamen, the founder, first started this, it was like, you learn from the pros or whatever. But I think what the best balance is some. I've been at regional events where there were kids in tears where the teacher would not let, the chain broke. That was back in the day when you had chain.
They did everything themselves.
Yeah, they did everything, but along the way they need some guidance, and she
That
wouldn't
was
even.
my job as a mentor. I
Yeah.
was the consultant.
Exactly, and she wouldn't even let them in the pits and everything,
Wrong.
and everything. Let the adults to help the kids out, to direct them and everything. And it's like, that grant money I got for you and everything. It's just going down. The kids need to be able to run with their robot, and then she finally let them in to do that. But I think the best balance is we can see further down the line that a 145-pound robot that's overweight isn't going to compete, and you bring the kids along so they realize that that's not the case, but to be there and advise them, let them do the work. If they fail, that's okay. They come to you and you redirect them.
The only time I would stop them, even if I saw a failure coming, was if it was dangerous,
Right.
or was going to compromise their success, getting on the field. I didn't say success on the field, but getting on the field.
Right,
So, yeah,
right.
that's the way I always played it. We ought to tell the story about Bel Air. So that was a fun one. Here's my version of it.
Okay.
So remember Rimple? What was the kid's name? Mm-hmm. And his parents were not here legally. Uh-huh. And so they went home. He managed to move into Bel Air, one of our locals communities. And he was doing first in another state before his parents left him. Mm-hmm. He found somebody to let him live in Bel Air and in their home. And then he decided to start a team.
Right.
Rather bold for a kid. He had no money because he needed $6,000. He had no mentors, and he had no teacher sponsor. And then I get a call from you saying this kid popped up. He's applied for U.S. First Robotics without a mentor sponsor.
Yeah.
And so you gave him the money. I became the mentor, and that team is still moving today.
Yes, they're still
I remember
there
one of the
today.
kids got a full ride at MIT and graduated too.
Yes, and that's some when you look at the growth, like I was telling you about the student earlier, you see their growth and everything, and then they go on to college. And our whole thing is NASA is very involved in FIRST. Why are they? Because that's their future workforce, that they're looking for, and then the kids go on to internships and
A
everything.
mutual friend of ours, Josh Shukanen, if you recall, he's a NASA rocket engineer, and he's a U.S. First alumni.
Right.
Yeah.
And now
Right.
he's gone on, bless his heart, and he is now mentoring teams.
Right.
So-
Right.
I remember, just quick on that intern, the NASA, I remember one time, because I worked at NASA for 3 years, and we were looking through the interns, and I told Lucian, I said, hey, this guy has all straight
Lucian
A's.
Junkin, tell us who
Junkin.
that is.
Yeah, Lucian Junkin. I told him, hey, this guy has all straight A's. And he said, I don't really worry about the grades. He says, do they have robotics experience? That's what I'm looking for, because then they have the work ethic, they have the character.
And Lucian works on the Robonaut, the
He's on the
actual,
Robonauts,
the real
yeah.
Robonaut that's going to be launched, but he
Right.
also is working with the NASA
with
sponsored
the rover,
team.
the lunar rover.
Yeah.
He was the chief engineer on the lunar rover. So
Very
that's
active.
what they look for that. They look for those skills. It's not just straight
Hands-on.
A's. Yeah, it's hands-on. So, yeah, well, that's a lot of the interns were chosen that way. So, yeah.
And then my top programmer is a U.S. First alum.
Yeah. Oh, here?
Right?
Oh, wow. That's pretty
Lucia's
cool.
son, Kevin.
Oh, I didn't know he was a programmer.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's actually a mechanical engineer, but that's the beauty of U.S. First. You become a well-rounded engineer.
Wow.
And so Kevin, I met him at U.S. First competition many years ago. Now he's been working here at ARC Specialties for 20 years, and he's considered to be our go-to guy.
Wow.
when the project is, as Kevin refers to it, as non-trivial.
Yeah.
So I'm the same way. I look for that on resumes.
Yeah. Did all your sons go through the first program,
Yes.
Lucia?
Yes.
That's 3.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And
I didn't
Kevin's
know.
still involved. He's still mentoring teams. He's an chief inspector.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
he's
And-
embraced it.
Oh, Kevin, and then Greg is a web developer. Or something.
Yeah, so I had twins, Kevin and Keith, that were on the Booker T. Washington team, and they went on to graduate and became, Kevin was mechanical and did computer programming, and then his twin brother Keith, who's in Philadelphia and worked with the several teams up there, same thing like his brother did here, he went ahead in mechanical and electrical engineering, and then the youngest son was going to go to Drexel, and I'm going to be an engineer. Well, he's an artist. He loves
is,
art.
okay.
And I did not know at that time, and it was explained to me, he got a scholarship to Drexel and everything. All 3 of my boys went on scholarships, full ride or whatever. And it was like, he's not doing too good with his GPA because what was the thing? He was in the wrong
college.
job. Wrong job. So he went into graphic design at Drexel, and now he's doing very well here in Houston and everything, and working and using
Precisely. I've got the
skits.
same problem. My mom was a geneticist doing some of the early radiation mutation studies. My father was an English professor, so I assumed I had to be one of the two. Wrong answer. And so we have a program here where we allow kids to come in and shadow, because in high school they're not old enough to do much useful work for us, but they'll spend 3 days working with mechanical, electrical, software, welding, and material scientists. And then and they'll either pick one of these avenues or they'll run away screaming. And both answers are okay, because this isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
But that's another advantage to this high school robotics program is the kids get a taste of all the different disciplines.
Yeah.
And they don't have to go into it. I had 2 sisters come in here. One's now an engineer and one is now working in the wine business. Both answers are correct.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Talk about STEM. What's that mean? Not the piece of a plant.
Well, since Juan is from he was a former teacher, and then he went to work for NASA in their educational outreach, and he now works with me at First in Texas. That's his expertise, so I'll let him talk about that and from a teacher's viewpoint.
Yeah, STEM is really, it's just science, technology, engineering, and math. And now they call it STEAM. Some people call it STEAM, which
Because
is
they put the art part in
they
it.
put the art part in it.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah. So, those are the skills that, students develop when they go through the first program, is we want them to develop, science, technology, engineering, and math skills. One time I did just real quick, one time I did a little study on my students compared to other students, in the school. And, in the math portion of the state mandated tests, they were scoring, kids that were in first were scoring 20% higher than,
Funny how that is.
yeah. And we weren't necessarily doing the same kind of math, I'm not, we weren't doing worksheets, we
You're doing practical math and they're
Practical
seeing
math.
the application for it.
Right. And so I would, show that a lot of times to the principal and to people to justify the program, because, a lot of times they were like, oh, it costs too much, things like that. But I was like, but look how much it impacts the kids. Yeah, they do a lot better in all these areas, science, technology, engineering, and math. So, yeah, as a teacher, that's why I eventually went to go work at NASA, because they wanted to spread robotics throughout Houston. So that was my job there, is to try to implement it in more middle schools and more high schools. And, I worked with Lucia mostly with the high schools and elementary schools too. Now it's becoming a lot bigger program, and it's kind of trickling down all the way to kindergarten, right, Lucia?
Thank
Yeah,
goodness, because it's hard when you start in high
Yeah.
school. It's a little light.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how over the years, if you look historically, at first it started with the first robotics competition.
High school level.
Yeah, high school level, and then it morphed into the younger brothers and sisters at home. I want to go be like
jealous.
my brother. Why can't I do things? And they developed first Lego League, and that's what Juan did with his middle school students
Right.
over at Hogg. And then it's like, okay, you're missing the middle.
Yep,
You're
you gotta
missing
fill
the
in the
middle.
middle.
And
Yeah.
so that's when First went ahead and added First Tech Challenge. So from K through 12, you have the experience all the way up a pipeline.
Yeah.
And now it's international competition. I know that
Absolutely.
typically when we go to the competition, I used to bring home an international team or two. We've had the kids from Lebanon come over here to the shop. We've had the kids from Ecuador come over
Right,
here.
right. Oh, I
So-
remember that.
Yeah, and so they gives them a chance to travel internationally, meet people. Wonderful program.
Yeah.
And STEM is near and dear to my heart because if you guys don't graduate some STEM capable kids, I don't have anybody to hire.
Oh, yeah.
And what's interesting is it just like we were talking about earlier. Well, the girls are there just to do the paperwork or whatever, and lo and behold, they can be mechanical engineers and everything else. That's one of the things that I enjoy about volunteering for First, because and giving feedback from working with the teams and everything. Not everybody has to be an engineer. Why do we say that? Because the person I was telling you about earlier, Vanessa, that was very good on, knew every tool, and the boys didn't, because she put the work in and cleaned up the machine, the shop and everything after it was over. She's now a teacher. You need someone to teach those the STEM
And she's
subjects.
your volunteer coordinator.
Absolutely, for
Yeah.
Houston.
Yeah. So it's really good.
All right, so like I said, I've started 6 teams. I've mentored a whole lot. It's been a whole lot of fun. I was running your pit for 3 or 4 years. There's a lot of opportunities for volunteers is the point. So talk about that. What do you need? What are you looking for? And this is, that we're in Houston, right? But this is not just all over the country. This is all over the world.
Right.
So what are you guys looking for? What do you need?
So, in addition to doing the first robotics competition for First in Texas, I'm also the statewide volunteer coordinator. Woo-hoo! About that, I have another colleague, Mom Susie Rich. She does the Girl Scout team in Austin, the Lady Cans, and
I've seen those kids.
And what they can do with duct tape. Duct tape is a sponsor
they're
of
using
theirs.
more than duct tape, don't they?
Yeah, what they do with duct tape is amazing. But anyway, in looking at that, what First did back in 2008, there were only regional events to go to, and so some teams only went like to a local Houston
That's all
team.
my teams ever did.
Yeah,
One.
and they were one and done. So in Michigan, they piloted, what if for your registration fee, you get 2 plays at 2 events, and then you go ahead and of course you get your kit of parts and everything. So they piloted district events. In a district event, what you do is you have all the bells and whistles or whatever at regional events and commercial venues, large commercial venues like George R. Brown or
Music, trophies,
right.
excitement.
Absolutely. Why can't we replicate that and go ahead and do it in a less expensive environment?
You get to use your robot twice.
Yeah,
or more.
and that's what. And so, in the district event, kids, if you went to local regional, you would get like 7 qualification matches, and then you didn't play anymore unless you were picked to go into the playoff.
Or you won your way into
Right,
the playoff.
exactly. And so what you do now is at a district event, you can get up to 12 plays. And so now they get to go to 2 events that here in Texas, we started district events in 2019. And we have them in colleges like San Jacinto Community College is a partner of ours, or we have them in larger high schools or in smaller venues, commercial venues, And so we're going ahead and do that. So you get to play twice and you get 24 plays compared to just 7. So that's been really good. And so this year we're going to do there's 2 ways to volunteer.
There you go.
You can volunteer at an event, or you can volunteer
So
for
you
weeks.
need judges, you need
That's correct.
inspectors, you need people to sign in kids? What else do you need?
Right. And one thing that I hear from a lot of people, I'd love to volunteer for this, but I can't because I'm not a mechanical engineer.
Wrong.
And I say, if you've got time, you're living, breathing, and everything, and you've got time, we can give you something to do. Because somebody's got to check the teams in. Somebody has to direct them. And even being a judge at the event, a lot of the people think that you have to be a mechanical or some type of engineering degree. The different awards that they give out a business award. They give out a community award, which was the chairman's award, but it's now called the Impact Award. And then there's the Dean's List Award, where a team nominates 2 students, and they go ahead and they're interviewed by people and everything. So we have all kinds of positions for judges and for being at the event, that you do. And then the other way to volunteer, I guess to back up, we have 9 district events all over the state of Texas. We have one in Dallas, 3 in Houston, by the way. I'm just putting that plug in. And then we also have the state championship here, which will take place at George R. Brown in April.
Fun.
Yeah.
And you got to pay to get in, right?
No.
So let's say somebody's listening to this and they go, hey, that's kind of interesting. Can they just show up?
Yes. There's no charge.
When is that?
Okay, so we will have, there's 3 events in Houston, and it's on our website, and if you happen to
What's
be.
What's the website?
It's firstintexas.org.
I-N or in?
I-N. First
Okay.
in. First, the word in, I-N. Texas.org. Yeah, and it shows you all of our events and everything, and we'd love to have you. And typically we need about 75 volunteers at each event to make it
But
work.
you'll settle for a spectator the first year, right?
Absolutely.
We usually have hundreds of people in the audience spectating. Right?
And I will give you an example of that. At the state when we did the state championship just this past April, I had a person that contacted me in March. Oh, hey, I want to form a first team or whatever. Well, the kickoff is January the 7th, so you
maybe
have
the next year.
Yeah, and so I told him what I directed him to do. I said, "Why don't you come to the state championship?" He did, and he's from Navasota. And guess what? We have a new Navasota
Right. And I bet
rookie
if the
team.
kids came, I'm sure they got into the excitement
Yes.
of it all. That's what I'm saying. Is even this year, it might. What is this? Early November. It's almost too late now.
Right.
Or is it?
Right.
Do you have any slots open in your district?
No, in fact, we were talking about that this morning. We have 6 slots left in the state of Texas for teams to compete.
So you could conceivably start a team if you're.
Well,
If you're as bold as Rimple was back in Bel Air.
if you're looking at that and you get 2 plays, we actually could only take 3 additional teams.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you can still sign up this year. You can definitely come to the competition and observe and get into it.
And if people are interested, what I encourage them to do is everybody comes in and they're all this energy and wide-eyed, and I can do this. I said, go shadow a team, have a couple of visits to a team, and if someone is interested in doing that, Juan and I can hook them up and say, oh, here, you can go over to this team, and you get to go to their
So
shop.
Can I walk through the pits if I come to competition?
Yes.
So
The
if I
only
walk through the pit,
requirement
you gotta
is,
wear glasses.
and you don't want open-toe
Yeah,
shoes.
so wear big boy shoes and
Yeah.
and bring safety glasses, and then you can walk right in the pits. And at least on all my teams, I always had one kid wear a vest, and that was the designated speaker for the team.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we would welcome people coming in and say, "Why did you build your robot that way?" And so that's all you got to do is just show up and talk to the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't talk to the adults.
Right. And in fact, it's interesting because some of the adults, like you were talking about before with your Duchenne team you worked with, some of the adults, when the judges come around, they want to speak, and the
Nope.
judges will tell them,
against my
no,
rules."
we're here to talk to the kids.
Bless those judges. That
Yeah.
is correct. Yeah.
And the other way to volunteer, and again, you talk about walking through the pits and everything, teams need mentors.
In
to
the worst
work.
way. And you don't have to be super technical. I remember my very first team, they asked me, Mr. Dan, can you dig a hole in metal? They were unaware that you could drill. So what I'm telling you is if there's anybody out there that would like to mentor that knows how to operate a drill,
Right.
that's the level of technology that these kids need. And that same team went on that first year to be in the top 8. And what that means is we went to the finals.
Yeah.
We beat the NASA team. We beat your team that year, Lucia.
Yeah, I do remember
And I
that.
think you spent 50 grand. We spent about 500. But so it just shows you that anything can happen.
Right.
If all you have to do is be able to know how to dig a hole in metal.
Well, and we particularly, the year that we had Katrina, we had, what was the storm the hurricane? I think it was Rita. Was it Rita that we had here? And we had a team in Coons, Texas. And of course, the storm came in there and everything was.
Ike here, I think.
Yeah. Well, when we had Ike in 2008, but it was the year of Katrina that we had. And so teams went ahead and they, I can't do this. I'm not going to be. They were able to do a robot. They paid the entry fee. We got them for the entry fee, and we got them like $1,500 to get their robot parts and everything, and they could compete. And a lot of it is, just having the tenacity and follow through and everything to do it.
Yeah.
How many times have I called you with a team that didn't have any money that you refused to help me fund it?
Not ever. I don't
Never.
Yeah.
No, we've never failed to go because that sends the wrong message to kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Bottom line is you guys have funding available through what I believe Haas Machine Tools is working with you now.
Yes, we have, and Dan told me about them, and they were great because we were a week and a half before the deadline was coming up. And anyway, it was like, okay, did my thing, got it out to teams saying you should apply and everything. And so the Haas people were at the World Championship.
They're great people. American-made machine tools who are supporting American industry. They've got my vote.
Yeah.
Right, and so we'll have our state championship here in Houston April 5th through the 8th, but 2 weeks later, we will have the World Championship here too at George R. Brown.
Excellent.
And we need volunteers for that too. I help recruit for that. But in April of 2022, Juan and I went up there. We went to the World Championship in that and met with the people at Haas. You know what their complaint was?
Not enough teams?
Yes. We
Good.
only got to fund 85 teams. You have how
See,
many
you're letting
teams
us
in
down.
Texas?
Yeah.
And they not only fund First Robotics competition teams, they also have funding for First Tech Challenge teams as well. But just a wonderful partner.
Super people, and
Yeah.
they're technical, and they understand precisely what they're accomplishing.
Yeah.
As soon as we finish this podcast, we're going to go walk through the shop. You're going to see 5 Haas machines building robots here in America. So,
awesome.
wow.
So that's why I'm such a big fan.
And another big supporter for Texas is the Texas Workforce Commission.
Right. Those guys always come through for me.
Yeah. Yeah, they do very well. Why? Because why would they invest money or whatever? We need future people.
We need people in our workforce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And you have to fill out a request, but personally, I think that's good exercise in itself. So
Yes.
So I guess the bottom line here is, to folks that are listening, if you have kids in anything from elementary to high school and you want to do this, be like Rimple, the kid that started his own team with no support. He started his own team with no support, and we ended up doing great things. So if you have kids, this is very doable. You can start a team. You contact Lucia, contact Juan, and then see if we can get some funding here. See if you can get a mentor. If you're interested in helping, we need mentors. You guys need people at the events. It's just a wonderful program.
Right.
That's just my opinion. You guys believe it because you're living the dream. You're working on this stuff.
Living the dream.
And if you want to know how to get in touch with Juan and
Right.
I,
Yeah,
it's
go ahead. Give us all the
Lucia,
addresses.
Lucia .Sevchik, S as in Sam, E, V as in Victor, CIK at firstintexas.org. And I'll let Juan give you
Yeah,
his.
mine is Juan, Juan, dot Salinas, Salinas, at firstintexas.org.
Yeah,
And if you want information, I was going to say on grants, you can go to our website, firstintexas.org, and just click on the grant link.
yeah.
So,
Here's the reality. If you type in U.S. First Robotics into Google, you're going to get to the main site, and that'll lead you down to the Texas site.
Right,
With
right.
a little bit of work. But
yeah.
And to your point, Deloitte, where you talked about money and grants, I'll tell my quick story because the kids are like, "Oh, we need to have a car wash and that." Been there, done that one time. And I can write a grant application and get more money where we did the car wash 8 hours later in the sun, sunburned. We didn't even get that. And my husband and I, our family bought the washing the car supplies. So
Wow.
don't wanna do that.
I encourage the kids to do some fundraising.
Yeah.
That's part of the game. But then a little
Yeah.
grant writing isn't bad for
Yes.
them either. It's a package.
Well, and one of the things I know ExxonMobil was a big sponsor of the Booker T. Washington team, and Juan can tell you the sponsors that they had. But what they wanted the kids to do is they wanted them to go to school. Their job, well, we need to be doing car washes and bake sales and all of this. What they want you to do, what we did instead of doing car washes and everything, we were fortunate, like I said, to have ExxonMobil and Kellogg Brown and Root as a sponsor. But what they wanted them to do, go to school, that's your job. And we did community events that we went out and spread the word. And we did community demonstrations. Or if ExxonMobil wanted to tell the story of, hey, we're supporting this program, here's what we're doing, then the kids went out and did the presentation. It wasn't me as an adult. What I did is much like you did for Juan and I introduced the students, here we are, and they took it over and they did an awesome job. So there's all kinds of ways to, that you can support and everything. And what, you had a large grant that you got, didn't you, at Hogg?
Yeah, we would get grants from like BP and Best Buy, but our biggest grant was from the Jordan Fundamentals Grant Program, which is the Michael Jordan Foundation. And what they did is we set it up where we set up in the hallway with all our robots and in our classroom, and they came to visit the school just to see what we were doing. And they only gave grants to sports, but I kept telling them that robotics is a sport.
It is a sport.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lifetime sport.
Right. And so they came in through our shop. We gave them the whole tour, and for about 3 years, they funded our program. So
Bless 'em.
yeah, it was really good.
That's pretty cool. Well, and so, but to somebody out there that's frustrated if they can't find a grant, you guys are like the grant clearinghouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys know everyone. So
Yeah.
I know, and it's interesting because I was telling Juan coming over here earlier, there were two of my Houston area teams that they hadn't registered yet. Oh, miss, I need to get in and all of this, and I'm going, and I am persistent. I'll use that word to describe
you call it?
myself. And like, well, how do we pay for this? Do you remember that email that I have now sent out to you 3 times? Do you not read your email? All you have to do is go and click this, and there's funds waiting there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have no excuse not to do this.
Exactly.
And we built robots on the tops of desks in schools. We built robots in my factory, all to the varying degrees of success. But and I think I have bought probably 10 tool packages. That's my contribution. And that's standing offer with Lucia here is if a group of kids are trying to work and they have no tools, I will get them the starter kit.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
there's a lot of ways to get this thing done. So
I wish I would have known that. During the hurricane you mentioned, I don't know if you know, but our shop, the whole roof caved in,
Oh, wow.
and we needed tools.
no,
Yeah, we had to
like
build
take
it.
away all the excuses. Oh, we don't have a drill.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. That's right there. So
Yeah.
that's my
That
job.
would have been cool.
And I was going to say one thing that I'm very fortunate here in Houston is our other partners that we have. You know, people talk about, well, you need money in that. It's in-kind support
Right.
because our
Matching
schools,
grants.
yeah, our schools that like we have an event at Channelview High School, and then we have one at Clear Falls High School, and San Jacinto College was a partner with us for probably 5 years, but they are remodeling the building that we were using and everything. But like Aldine, the M.O. Campbell Center, they step up and they're partnering with us where I don't have to go ahead and fundraise all in cash. It's like, okay, you don't need to, you know, you may get your venue rent in kind or whatever. So
that's a
I
big
would
help.
really do a shout out to them because they've been great.
So
Yeah.
so there's no excuse not to start a team.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I brought you guys on because I'm such a huge fan of the program for the last 20-something years. Anything else you want to add?
I think we've covered everything. Checked all
Yeah.
the boxes.
Yeah, we've checked all the boxes.
Yeah. I've tried to kind of like spread my enthusiasm to the audience here. I hope y'all picked up on it, but it's a very fulfilling program. You're doing something useful. You're giving kids an outlet. Kids like me that didn't have an outlet for this creativity, giving them an outlet for it, and encouraging them to get into school. I know the headmistress at Duchenne actually showed me a graph of the number of girls going into engineering. And over the years, it went way up. So,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with an engineering degree. You know, whether you practice engineering or not, it's one of the most credible degrees that anyone can have. So,
Yeah.
all
That's
right.
good.
Well, that's my 2 cents.
All right.
Any parting thoughts?
Yes, we can use, I'll do one more plug. We can use sponsors for our local events here that we're doing in Houston, and we can also use volunteers for that. And
Yeah.
as a volunteer, just as a little bit of motivation there.
What do you get?
You get a T-shirt, all
All right.
right. And you go ahead and you get, if we're at a commercial event, you get your parking taken care of, and we feed you food.
Delicious food.
Yeah, delicious
yeah.
food and snacks and drinks and stuff. So
And
we'd love to have
you
you.
got the World Championship here this year
Yes.
in
It's-
Houston.
It's going to be April 19th through 21st.
So there's going to be kids from how many countries?
Well, we're international, so
Right,
we'll
right.
be
I
all
mean,
over the world.
Dozens. It's
Yeah.
really impressive. So-
Right.
and that's all happening right here. Okay, why don't we get you guys to come back after that,
We will.
and then
Tell
we'll
you how things happen.
we'll debrief.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Until then,
Sounds
thanks
good.
for coming. I really appreciate you joining me
All
today.
right.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. And we got it in under 60 minutes. How about that?
Damn it.